Hello there. You know who this is. I was a Terminator, a governor, and now I can say with the utmost confidence that I am the #1 fan of the License to Watch podcast. If you're listening to this show for the first time, I am truly excited for you because this show isn't for weaklings. This show is fantastic. These guys, the guys here who do the License to Watch podcast, they've got something else and it's called a Patreon, which is also fantastic. It's a way to get bonus content, which I love because it really gets me pumped up. It only costs $1 a month, which if you ask me is chump change. For that tiny price, you get to hear the boys talk about bonus movies. Movies such as Twister, Hard Boiled, my friend Sly Stallone's classic film Cliffhanger, as well as the next generation Star Trek films. I love Picard and Data. So get your ass over to www.patreon.com/L2W and become a patron today. Don't be a weakling, or else I will mow you down with a minigun. Arnold, we can't threaten the subscribers. What's that? Oh, okay. I lied. I won't kill you. Yet. Once again, that is www.patreon.com/L2W. Join now. It's only $1. Don't cry about it. Now get to the chopper! Admiral, there be whales here! That, of course, was my best Scotty impression of him uttering the famous line from this movie. But of course, he's not referring to the bloated old bodies of the returning cast members. This movie has actual whales. Leonard Nimoy returns to the helm once again to direct one of the most unconventional Star Trek adventures ever put to celluloid. After the serious and operatic tones of the previous 3 films, Nimoy and producer Harve Bennett thought that it was time for some lighter fare. With Shatner unwilling to return to the role of Captain Kirk, he was promised to be paid the same amount that Nimoy was paid, as well as being given the opportunity to direct the next film in the series. More on that next time. The script, co-written by Nimoy and Wrath of Khan director Nicholas Meyer, revolves around a time travel adventure. One early idea that was scrapped was to have the crew return to modern-day San Francisco and meet an alien-obsessed college professor, who was to be played by comedian Eddie Murphy. Luckily for the crew of the Enterprise, and for the rest of us, the role was reworked into that of Dr. Gillian Taylor, played by the lovely Catherine Hicks of Seventh Heaven fame, who portrays the leading whale specialist at the fictional Cetacean Institute. She also becomes the love interest of Captain Kirk, a trope from the old TV series that has yet to be revisited in a movie until this point. Shot almost entirely on location, in stark contrast to the previous entry, this fish-out-of-water story went on to become very positively received by critics and moviegoers alike. Not only did it appeal to Star Trek fans, but it also was the most accessible story to non-Trek fans as well. Lacking space battles, gunfire, and the Enterprise itself, this film is the least violent and most family-friendly adventure by far. Opening on Thanksgiving weekend in 1986, the film went on to make $133 million at the worldwide box office against its $21 million cost. It also went on to garner 11 nominations at that year's Saturn Awards and 4 nominations at the 59th Annual Academy Awards for sound, sound effects editing, original score, and cinematography. So hold on to your infinity loop reading glasses, prepare your best whale song, and strap onto this insane nuclear vessel with me, Matt McGregor, along with my crewmates Harris McCabe and Colin Shaw. Join us as we count our exact change bus fare and do a slingshot around the sun in order to uncover the secrets of why this movie rules so hell damn much. Because if you don't, well, that's a double dumbass on you, buddy. We watched the 4th entry in the original Star Trek franchise of films, a Leonard Nimoy joint, 1986's Star Trek: The Voyage Home. This is a show about franchises, movie franchises. You're listening to License to Watch.
Why in the world was this movie made?
Experience yesterday of flying home from Connecticut, and
I know you got delayed 4 hours or more. Is that right?
Oh yeah. It ended up being more than that. I got to Charlotte, and basically we all got loaded onto the plane. We were ready to go, and the weather had been clear. And in the time it took us to sit down on the plane, this huge thunderstorm rolled in, and apparently they had been loading up bags on the bag ramp, but as soon as lightning strikes, the baggage handlers aren't allowed to touch the bag ramp anymore. So they have to like put it away, and then when lightning strikes, they have to like wait 10 minutes, and then if there's no lightning, then they can put the bag ramp back up and continue loading. So they had us on the plane for 3 hours trying to load, like, I think there was like 5 more bags left, and they couldn't get them on because every time it would be like 10 minutes and then no lightning, and they'd put the bag ramp up and get like 1 bag on, and then lightning would strike and they'd have to take the bag ramp down again. So we sat on the plane for 3 hours, and then they were like, you know what? Just go back in the terminal. So we went back in the terminal. Meanwhile, every other plane in Charlotte was also sending their passengers off to wait in the terminal. So the terminal was like packed with all these people waiting for future flights, all these people that were waiting for flights that should have already taken off. So I sat in the terminal for like almost 3 hours, and then they put us back in the plane and then fly us out. So all told, I got to the airport at Hartford at noon yesterday and ended up getting back to my apartment at like 12:30 last night. Last night, yes.
Which is
or the
really
night before.
3:30 in the morning. For
Yeah,
you,
exactly.
right?
So it was like 14 plus hours of just being in airplanes and airports. It was not fun. Yeah.
Well, that'll teach you. Never try.
Yeah.
never fly
that
during
was,
a pandemic.
That was the moral of the story. Yeah, I thought it was great because it was actually not very crowded, but then it was a huge pain in the ass. But I guess you can't do anything about the weather. It's just something that happens.
That's
Well,
crazy.
We did tell you to stop sacrificing to Zeus improperly, and you kept doing it improperly. And a lot of people don't sacrifice to Zeus at all. I don't know if you knew this. And you know, it's just one of those things. It's one of those things.
Wait. Just to clarify, for our listeners who might not be following your logic, Zeus is the god of baggage handlers, as everyone knows. And so this is...
Yes.
All right. Okay, let's just start the show.
It was very important for the ancients to develop a belief system that represented their care about their baggage.
Yeah.
They knew.
Fundamental to every culture.
All right. So if you're listening still, if you're still with us, this is License to Watch, and today we're talking about the 4th entry in the original Star Trek series, Star Trek IV, The Voyage
Save the
Home.
whales.
Yes. Joining us today is our special guest, Matt Jablin. Hey, Matt.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me.
So we have 2 Matts. So what are we gonna do? If I say Matt and then both of you respond, are we gonna develop
I mean, that
a
will
system or something?
happen.
Did you just say that
Does it-
will happen?
That whale. Whale.
I'm just going to call you one of you good Matt and one of you bad Matt, and we'll wait for you guys to figure it out.
In post, I'll have to figure it out.
Or it'll change depending on who's doing better in the episode currently.
Yeah. All right. Good plan.
Yeah.
All right.
You guys could call me McGregor, and then he could be Matt. I'll forfeit my first name.
Oh, that's so good of you. There's so many Matts out there. There's
I know.
Crazy
I
amount of
know.
Matts.
There are a lot of Matts.
It just makes me want to name my children like really out there names so that they'll never live the life that I did, meeting people with the same name constantly.
Yeah,
Harris, you have a pretty unique name.
Yeah, I've never met another Harris. Oh, I do sometimes meet people who introduce themselves as Harris, and I'm always like, yeah, are you sure? Like, is it your first name or your middle? A lot of times it's a middle name, and they just go by that, and they're like, oh, no, my first name's John, but I go by, and I'm like, that doesn't count. Or they're Harrisons, and they shorten it, and I'm like, that doesn't count either.
If I'm not mistaken, you have 2 brothers, right, Harris?
Yes.
And they both have like normal names.
John and Michael, yeah.
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 So it's like
Those are
your
from the
parents are like,
Bible.
they had one kid, they're like, let's give him a crazy name. And then for the rest, they were like, whatever,
Let's
John.
just phone it in. Yeah, exactly. They're like, all right. We don't got to get crazy with every one of these kids.
You guys know.
Oh,
what
I know. I could call one of you doormat and one of you placemat. Who wants to be which?
You know where
Good
I see a
one.
lot of Matts, guys.
Oh, no.
Yoga class.
Wow.
All right.
Get it?
That wasn't bad. That wasn't as bad.
It's a lot of guys named Matt want to stay physically limber. All right, let's talk about this movie. Matt, thanks for doing this. What do you have going on in your life? Give us a little something funny story.
Funny story.
Well, just
well,
tell us.
it's
I mean, these
the
guys
most-
don't know you, so maybe tell us a bit about.
Yeah. So I'm originally from New York City. My wife and I moved to Los Angeles about 6 years ago, and I'm a writer-director of promos and commercials. I worked at MTV for many years in New York and sort of cut my teeth directing there. And I live on the east side of LA, and we just had a baby girl.
Congratulations.
Nice.
It's not funny, but it's something. Thank you.
That's great. And so what's your experience or what's your background with Star Trek? Are you a fan? Was this your first time seeing this movie?
No, I am a fan. I'm more of a TNG guy than a TOS guy.
Nice.
I would rush home from school every day to watch a new episode of Next Generation. It was in syndication by that time, and seen every single episode. And always thought that the original series was a little corny, but still grew up watching the movies, which of course upped the production value and
corniness.
And in particular, I was really, this may be weird, but I was kind of psyched to get asked to talk about Voyage Home because I have a childhood memory of Voyage Home. In fact, growing up in New York City, it's one of two movies that I remember going to see with my father in the movie theater. That and Jedi, and I have no idea why. Like Voyage Home really shouldn't stick. I guess maybe the whales makes it unique. But I have a vivid memory of seeing it with my dad. It's a rambling way of me saying I'm pretty familiar with the Star Trek series and the mythology and the lore. And I think I listened to the first episode with you, Harris. You had no sort of entree into the series.
I'm getting it all for the first time. Yep.
Yeah.
And this is actually one. This is the only one that I remember in my entire life that I remember when this came out. Because I think because of the whales. This is like the only, if somebody was like, hey, what do you know about Star Trek movies? I know there's one where Shatner yells Khan, and there's one where they save the whales, and they're in like the present day. And that's all I remember of these films.
Yeah. Colin, is that your cat?
Yeah. You can hear that?
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
he needs to talk about stuff sometimes.
He's ruining our takes.
Cool. Well, this was actually my first time seeing this movie too. I was aware of the whale thing also, and I'm aware of that old cliche of like every even numbered Star Trek movie is a good one and every odd number one is bad. So I was expecting this one to be good. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it is though. I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's the best one so far.
Wow. More than Wrath of Khan.
Yes. If you listen to that episode, you'll hear that I think parts of Wrath of Khan are overrated and don't stand the test of time.
Yeah. Sort of like you had to be there, or like you had to grow up watching it
exactly
in a contemporary way in order to have that nostalgic feeling about it.
You can tell,
except I said it in a way less insightful way.
Matt had a very controversial Wrath of Khan take, which was, it's not good and I don't know why.
Wow, yeah.
You can tell Matt's getting into it, though. He's starting to talk like Shatner. I was aware of the whales thing.
His aura is taking over my essence.
The charisma's just rubbing off on him.
Yeah. I love the difference between Shatner in, Star Trek times versus him once he's on the ground in the 80s. We're seeing real two sides of him in this one.
He's kind of like you could tell he's trying to turn on the charm, but it just seems like he's like leeringly like odd and in the funny outfit and everything, and you can't tell, is he hitting on her? Is he high? What is going on with this guy right now?
Yeah, it's kind of nice though because he's almost aggressive, but he's also like, please like me, You're
right. It's actually like the saddest relationship he ever has with a woman, because he's kind of like, he's really trying to win her over, and it really doesn't really work, even though like she makes a series of inexplicably bad decisions that make no sense for her character or for any human woman, but it's like has nothing to do with him. It's because of her own emotional distress.
She's pretty desperate and pretty obsessed with whales. whales, and that has really changed
likes
the way
whales.
she dates.
I have nothing else in this world. Doesn't she say that at one point? She's like, I'll go with you. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I bet her landlord is pissed.
Well,
I
that's
feel. No, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say that's what I was thinking at the end of this movie was like I kind of wanted to see what happens after they, like they should look up the whale doctor's disappearance in human history and see if that coworker she publicly fought with prior to vanishing was ever convicted of her murder. Because I think there's like a whole spin-off movie here where he ends up going to jail for a crime he didn't commit.
Right.
Her character almost would make more sense if it was today, because she'd be like, yeah, I need to go to space with you because I have like $50,000 worth of debt.
Yeah. Oh wait, so you mean I'll just disappear and nobody will be able to find me? Perfect. You're solving
I went
all
to
of my
private
problems. Yeah, exactly. You know how many years of grad school I had to go to be a whaleologist?
Yeah. Car payments, no. Rent.
Wait, I don't need
Goodbye.
a work visa to move to space.
You don't have
future.
you don't have
Sign
money
me
in the
up.
future, so how do you account for people's debt? Wait, no debt? I'm in.
As soon as she finds out they still make pizza that in the future, it's over.
Yeah,
Mushroom, pepperoni, extra onions, and a Michelob, baby.
yeah,
Excellent choice. Excellent choice.
But
I
there's
love when the waiter says that.
Yeah.
It's so like,
yeah. All right.
like wow, no one's ever ordered that before here. That's an excellent choice. My God.
You know who my least favorite character is? Her boss at the Cetacean Institute.
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah.
Well,
Isn't that his name?
well, don't
He
worry.
sucks.
He definitely goes to jail for her disappearance.
She's seen on camera like slapping him in the face
Yeah.
moments before she disappears.
The end of the true crime episode ends with, and they've still not recovered her body.
Then the Unsolved Mysteries theme
Yeah.
song plays.
A lot of shots of how big San Francisco Bay is that imply she's like at the bottom of it somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
She was last seen in the park, Golden Gate Park.
Yeah.
Well, since you mentioned your favorite or least favorite, I'll mention my favorite Star Trek character in any Star Trek is the elderly orange Shih Tzu that is the navigator of the USS Saratoga at the beginning.
Oh yeah,
I love that
yeah.
guy.
with no eyeballs, he's just got white
Yeah, yeah.
eyes, right?
It's just like
Is-
this crew of terrible actors and this one guy in this elaborate makeup who growls all his lines.
He looks like kind of like an albino anime character.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the reference Shih Tzu, or unless you mean the dog. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's
Yes.
what I mean.
Yeah, I was thinking. I don't know the name of the sort of kung fu master that they reference in Kill Bill, but
Right, like a
that's who I
Shaw
was thinking
Brothers.
of.
Oh,
like
Pai
a Shaw,
Mei?
Shaw
Like Shaw
Brothers.
Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the master.
Is it
Definitely.
Isn't he Pai Mei and
Sensei?
like
yeah.
Fu Manchu or
Pai
something.
Mei and Kill Bill. Yeah, they got
Right,
the
right.
white Fu Manchu mustache and the extra long eyebrows.
Right.
I like that
Exactly.
whole bridge. That woman captain and him, they're just
Yeah.
intense as fuck.
And the guy who's got he always has these canted angles and he's lit really dramatically, the radar guy who's like, it's approaching this way, but
Yeah.
they're so bad at like just basic line readings.
I've seen this movie a ton of times, and I'm at the point where during the first part of the movie, I'm always wondering, so, this takes like a couple days in, Shatner time, but it only takes a few minutes for him to, go and come back. But there's still a lot of people like trapped in little space elevators and stuff like that for a really long time. This is like a big event in the world where a bunch of people just got locked in the dark for like hours or days.
It seems like you could have a bunch of Poseidon Adventure style spin-off movies about people trying to survive crippled spacecrafts.
Yeah.
One of the first shots of this movie is on on that ship, the Saratoga, and like a guy leans, an ensign leans forward into frame, and he says like, "It appears to be a space probe or whatever." And the way that shot is composed, it's like the most cinematic shot thus far of like all of these movies, to the point where I was watching it and I was like, I think I said out loud, "This movie has the best cinematography of any Star Trek." I looked it up. This movie was fucking nominated for best cinematography at the
Wow.
Academy Awards.
That
Can you
actually,
believe that?
that actually, well, I don't know what the other competition was in 1986, but that makes a lot of sense to me because it certainly is, like you said, it's the best a Star Trek movie has looked. I was like, oh, finally, they actually made it look like a real movie.
It also
It wasn't
got,
all shot on the Paramount lot.
Yeah. It also got nominated for sound editing and music as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
love the
would-
music in this one so much.
I do not like the music. We should definitely talk about that.
Oh man, the best is when they're breaking out of the hospital.
And I think I think they use the same theme for when they're breaking Chekhov, or when Chekhov's on the run in the ship, which is like this hilarious, jaunty little escape tune that ends with him jumping to his apparent demise.
You mean when the Navy is chasing Chekhov's stunt double?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's well, the you're bearing the lead though. The premier sound cue in the whole movie is, of course, when they cut to them on the street in San Francisco, and it's the funky rock.
Oh yeah.
80s beat. Yeah.
I love that so much.
Definitely like the Axel F of the Star Trek world.
Yes.
Should we just do the? Should I do the summary now since we're already
let's-
talking about it?
let's
Then we
get
can
it.
get the plot out of the way.
Yeah, so we do this bit where Harris sums up the plot in 2 minutes or less. So bear with us here.
I'm gonna try not to be too far under. There isn't a lot of plot
And
to this one.
when he gets done, new Matt, you tell him if he did it right or not.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Booyaka shot.
Okay, so there's this giant black bar that's making this ominous noise, and the crew of the USS Saratoga see it, and it turns their power off, and they're like, oh no. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Federation Grand Council just finished watching Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, and this Klingon guy is all butthurt because Admiral Kirk killed Christopher Lloyd, and so he says there's going to be war, and it's like this great foreshadowing moment, but not for this movie because we never see him again. So on Vulcan, the Star Trek team has decided to take this Romulan ship back to Earth to face trial for their crimes of heroism, but on the way they get this distress call from Earth that the giant black bar has zapped all the power and is destroying the planet, and they don't know what it is, and they can't stop it, so stay away. So they analyze the ominous noise that it's making, and they deduce that the black bar wants to talk to whales, but whales are extinct, so they're like, no problem, we'll just go back in time and get some. Piece of cake. So they fly around the sun and into 1986, where they park in an their invisible spaceship in Golden Gate Park and hope nobody graffitis it, I guess. And they all split up to find fuel and a giant fish tank and whales. And so the supporting cast definitely get into some crazy hijinks finding the first two things, but Kirk and Spock get the A story of finding the whales. So they meet this whale scientist at the whale aquarium, and she says that their two whales are going to be set free and probably hunted by poachers. So Spock tries to seduce the whales, and Kirk tries to seduce the doctor, and eventually Kirk convinces her that he's a space captain from the future without ever having to show her his invisible spaceship, but then he shows her it anyways. So meanwhile, Chekhov's in the hospital, so they have to break Chekhov out of the hospital, and then they get the whales, and then they go to the future, and then they save the day, and Admiral Kirk gets demoted to captain of the Starship Enterprise, which is what he wanted all along. The end, with way too much time to spare.
Use these next 13 seconds to, I don't know, dance or something. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not very good
listeners.
It's not good at a podcast.
I was just going to describe it to the listeners, but you know what? Fuck them. Great job.
That was awesome. I think you could have used the word whale a little bit more.
Yes.
And
You called it a Romulan ship. and
Yes,
it's a
point of
Klingon
clarification. It was a Klingon bird of prey.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's
right.
right.
The coolest ship.
It's a cool ship.
You said it was 1986, but I think it was supposed to be 1987.
Yeah,
Right?
I believe that's correct, Matt.
Yes.
All right. Good job, guys. Good job.
Did you guys ever play
Nice
this?
notes.
I used to play this computer game that had. It was basically a verse. It had a versus mode where you played spaceship versus spaceship, and it had all of the sort of iconic movie spaceships that you've seen through cinema history that you played each other, and they were sort of rip-offs of those spaceships.
I was
They
going to say,
weren't
it sounds like a licensing
right, yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah, no, and they were totally ripping it off, but they made it just a little bit different, and there was totally a bird of prey, and it was the coolest looking ship. Bird of prey.
Sounds like an awesome game.
It was a great game.
Yeah.
Great game.
This game that has no name.
The rip-off spaceship game.
Yeah, I mean, this movie's pretty rock solid, as Harris just described. I concede my time to you guys. I have nothing else to say.
You know what's really
Great
interesting
movie.
about this movie is that it's not. There's no real antagonist, right? There's no bad guy. There's no core bad guy. It's just kind of literally a race
fun
against
romp.
time.
The enemy is man. The enemy of whales
The enemy
is
is
man.
man.
To
Yes,
put it
our
lightly,
hubris.
yes.
It's
Or
kind of like the first movie in that way, except that stuff happens in this one.
Right.
Um,
Fun stuff.
yeah,
Wessels.
It's awesome. Anybody notice that Chekhov is wearing leather head to toe?
Oh yeah.
God.
His pants.
He loves
are
that.
leather.
His leather
Sleeves
jacket.
are like they're bell bottoms, but sleeves.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you got to imagine he didn't shower for a few days. That had to just be a whole thing.
Well, that's the other thing about this movie, all the movies really, is that they're continuous. Like, you're literally picking up where the last one left off. I think
That's-
with the maybe Khan doesn't pick up quite where the first
Well,
one leaves
I
off,
did
but-
notice upon my second viewing that it says in the beginning that when they're like repairing the ship and those guys wearing like the elf hats or like in the background,
Yeah.
the red elf hats, they said that they've been there for 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
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 But I only bring it up because it's that idea that they're like basically wearing the same thing through Khan
Yeah.
to search for Spock to this, and it's
Right. I'm sure the Vulcans offered them bathrobes. But they were all like, you know what? Well, I'll
I'm
just
good.
wear my stinky clothes. I really like pants. I'm kind of used to pants.
Spock is like, this is what I wear on my planet. It's
Yeah.
a bathroom.
he likes to let it all hang out.
I don't really understand Vulcan. They got these fancy computers, but they haven't invented doors yet.
Yeah.
So this is one of the
we live in caves, but we do have really good Wi-Fi here.
one of the most unintentionally funny things about the movie is those computers that he's. So this is right after he says they've been there for 3 months, and it kind of implies that Spock is spending hours a day with 3 different computer screens, consistently just answering 3 different questions at the same time, and it's like a super intelligence test.
While playing a chess game.
Yeah, but the computer's voice is so awful. Like, it's so unintentionally funny to me that, because this is kind of consistent with the original series. The voice of the computer in the original series was really painful to listen to. And they have to go in there and ask the computer questions and stuff. And they're just like, oh, ow, this hurts my ears. But they're like acting like it's fine. And the whole idea that we get that far advanced and the computer's voice would be that hard to listen to is hilarious to me.
Well, I think that particular computer was supposed to be sort of a challenging thing. You know, like he's taking 3 different tests essentially at the same time to prove his intellect or his use of logic or whatever.
I love the font that it has. It's got a sweet
The
font.
font's cool.
The font is the same font, if I'm not mistaken, as the game that the kid plays in the beginning of Big. Do you remember Big?
Yeah.
Yes,
How
yes.
that starts?
Yeah.
That font like really stuck out to
Yeah,
me.
it's got a real Oregon Trail kind of.
Yeah, it's definitely
Exactly,
a product of the times. I noticed that this has a lot of those like vector graphic, early 80s video game kind of things, which were also in Star Wars quite a bit. And I also just like the lived in look of the ship and stuff. I feel like they were finally, many years later, taking some notes out of the Star Wars book and being like, yeah, let's make it look like people actually occupy this world and not like it's like a sterile environment. I know they weren't on the Enterprise, which is part of it, but I definitely
that's a
felt
big
like they
part
were.
of it. But
Well, then they end up on the revamped Enterprise at the end, and it's got that totally antiseptic, like sterilized
Yep.
thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like
The
that's
new-
just Federation aesthetic.
The new Enterprise that they built in what, a couple of months? I didn't really understand that either. Had some questions.
Yeah, and weren't they in trouble prior to that? Like we're gonna arrest them, or press charges against them when they get back. But in the meantime, let's build them a new ship.
They broke a ton of laws.
Of space and time. Yes.
Yeah.
But I kind of took that as sort of like, yes, slap on the wrist, but you did save the world. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you
Right.
can't compare it to our justice system. It's like, I was charged with murder, but in my defense, I argued that I had saved the planet many times. And
Here you go, new
they
spaceship.
demoted me to captain.
If it was our justice system, it would be like, okay, you guys all get a slap on the wrist and uhura, 2 years.
Yeah.
No explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not laugh at that.
I love that scene with Chekhov and the Navy interrogator guy.
Yeah. What do they like? Who do they call out for central casting for that guy? They're like, okay, give me your youngest, smarmiest asshole.
Yes, I need douche incarnate.
Yeah, right.
That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Of course he's a Rusky.
But the exchange with the cop, How fucking
where he
funny
doesn't
is
say
that?
anything. He just looks at
Dude,
them.
and this
Because he's an
movie-
extra and he was told not to say anything.
Yeah, and he was stoic, and it was so fucking funny. Like, I laughed my ass off when that happened.
I
This
like the-
movie is fucking funny.
It's so fun. I like the woman better.
very funny.
I think it's across the bay in Alameda. And they're like, we know that.
That's what I
that's what I
just
just
said.
That's
I
what
know
I
this.
said. I said it was Alameda.
Yeah, this movie definitely tried to be funny. I think I appreciated the effort. I didn't laugh very often, but I liked that they were like trying to have fun with it, especially when they dropped them into like, you know, what was modern day America, and
Right.
you know, like they clearly were like enjoying the absurdity of the premise and
Right.
trying to like get some good laughs out of it.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of that is Kirk walks into engineering. We got to go find some humpbacks. Scotty, humpback people? Now, you know the writers are trying to be funny when they write something like that.
My favorite part of like just in terms of the comedy was actually when Scotty is taking the cure of the he's doing the plexiglass factory tour with the guy.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah, that cracked me up. Just the entire and the two of them
Computer.
like sort of hamming it up there.
Oh, dude, talking into the mouse.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
Yeah, talking
then,
into the mouse.
Hello, computer.
and then
But
doing
that was perfect, and that is the scene I think where I fall in love with this movie, because I think it blew my young mind when I saw it, because it was the first sort of acknowledgement from a time travel movie that I had seen where there was an acknowledgement that like they were somehow altering the fate of or the course of history in some way, and that was okay because that's the way it always happened. You know, like you
Right.
can't change the past because this is the way it always was.
I like
in a way.
Bones' reaction to that idea that this random dude might have actually invented
Right,
this
right.
stuff anyways.
yes. How do we know it wasn't him?
I think Star Trek comes with a certain level of like cheesiness, and
Yeah.
you know, it's like it's always been made fun of for kind of its like, you know, for lack of a better word, cheesiness. But I think in this movie, like putting it on its head and them kind of being self-aware of themselves and acknowledging how like, you know, kind of uptight and you know, Spock is, for instance, or like, you know, just being able to point the finger at themselves like really puts a smile on your face, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, they get it, like they know what they are.
Yeah.
I think this is a real precursor to what Marvel has tried to do once they started like building it into a franchise. Is like now we know that all of their characters are kind of fish out of water characters because, you know, superpowers don't actually exist in real life. So now the writing is much more geared towards like, let's let them have like funny little witty things that they say to keep the story going, because
It's
we
a-
have to keep selling tickets to sequel after sequel, you know.
Being a little bit tongue in cheek allows them to sort of play out the improbability of all the stuff that's happening.
Exactly.
One question about that Scotty scene where he doesn't know how to interface with the computer, but then all of a sudden he's doing these complex calculations on different programs.
And hunting and pecking. the
Yeah, I love
keyboard
that.
as he
That's what I
does
was
it.
gonna say. I love that
yeah.
he's hunting peck, but he's like 7
But
windows
leagues,
deep.
yeah,
And-
yeah.
and we also
but leagues above where we are.
We see it cycle through the same animation twice also. But then what's up with Madeline coming in to interrupt? Not now,
Not
Madeline.
now, Madeline.
Get the fuck out, Madeline.
What is
You
that about?
stupid
It like
bitch.
cuts away. What is that?
It
Sound
feels like
it's
an
a-
inside joke.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this movie from the beginning, because there's a couple of things that happen pretty quickly that we need to address. So, I mean, I guess first off, if we want to go to the very beginning, the first thing we see is the Challenger
Oh yeah.
The message.
you know, message in the beginning. Pretty touching, pretty pretty big event of the year. Although, I mean, I guess this movie came out like almost a full year after that happened. But still, it was, you know, I guess they felt obligated to say something, which was nice.
It's a movie about space travel in a way, so it has to.
Yeah. So then they get right to it, and you know, we're on Vulcan, right? Is that the planet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we see Savick, who's been with us for the last 2 movies. She's looking good, looking fine.
Is that the same? That isn't the same actress, is she?
It's
Yeah,
the
it's the
same
same.
hot
As
actress.
Same
Search.
one
Yeah.
from the last one.
She looks
Search for
taller,
Spock,
right?
yeah.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Well, no, I was
She
gonna.
grew.
I was
She
gonna
grew
say.
since the last movie.
I thought it was the same one from the last movie only because she had like very pointy features still, but I thought her hair looked a little puffier.
Yeah, her hair's even bigger. It's hot as fuck.
She got a new perm.
Between her and Kirstie Alley, though, you go with New Savick?
Yes, that's right.
We had this discussion in the
Oh,
last
sorry,
episode.
sorry.
Colin and I are for New Savick.
These guys are out of their damn minds. They actually think this new Savick is hotter than Kirstie Alley.
Yeah,
I think Kirstie Alley looks weird.
I'm allowed to think that.
Yeah.
She looks weird in Wrath of Khan.
You're allowed
I
to have
stand
all
by.
sorts of dumb opinions. That's basically what this podcast is about.
Look,
But are
I'm
you
gonna.
looking at her as Savick, Kirstie Alley, or like her character on Cheers, Kirstie Alley? Like, are you looking at it clear-eyed, just like her version of Savick versus this?
Who are you asking? Me?
I guess Harris, because he finds.
I think that I'm looking at it in terms of just the Savick.
Yeah.
I'm just
Within the
judging
confines of the movie.
Savick versus Savick. I think the original Savick is the hotter Savick.
Yeah.
I think
that
you're
you're
wrong.
I'm gonna keep saying it out loud until some guy in camo snatches me up into a van. That won't
It's
happen.
just Harris. He's like, you will shut your mouth. Damn it, Madeline. I mean, Colin. Yeah, so Savick, and then they graffitied the word bounty on the ship, which is a plant because later on we see more graffiti in San Francisco. I don't know.
I don't think that's what they were intending to do.
Obviously, it went over your head, Colin.
I felt like they always have to sneak in literary references. Like I think they think it elevates it somehow, and I think they kind of discovered that with I mean, I'm sure that existed in some form in the original series too, but Wrath of Khan went knee deep in that, and I think that they thought they were being literary.
It's because all the Star Trek fans hang their hats on the fact that this is like the smart version. Like all you idiots who watch the other space shows don't get it.
We read.
Yeah, we read. We're smart,
Right.
and so it doesn't even matter if the references mean anything or relate to anything. It's just like just throw them in there so the Trekkie geeks can be like, yeah, this is this thinking man,
books.
the thinking man
right.
space opera.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
So then we get some stuff on Earth with the president of the Federation or the president of
Yeah.
The old
world?
white guy with the goatee.
Yeah. What
He's
is he the
the
president
Federation.
of?
President
right?
of the Federation. He was elected
Okay.
by the
He's
Federation members.
elected by his peers.
I like in one of the shows, the president of the Federation is not human, but he's still on Earth serving his term.
That's what I was gonna say. That would have been really thoughtful and progressive if the president of the Federation was one of those weird aliens that looks like like something from the costume
Pai Mei guy?
pop up. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're also the president of the Federation in number 6. He does look like the Pai Mei guy.
Oh,
He
cool.
he looks almost exactly like that, and he's the president of the Federation. So it's implied that he's an alien.
I actually like the Klingon ambassador who's all going crazy and stuff.
Oh, he
seems
really makes his case. Like
Yeah,
I'm
he-
these guys are bad.
he seems overqualified for his part in this movie. In a movie like that's filled with minor roles being executed by actors that can just barely handle the tiny amount of lifting they're doing, we got this Klingon ambassador who I don't even know who that actor is or what else he's been in, but he's killing it.
That was Peter O'Toole. In
No,
his
that guy's
final role.
great. I think he is also the lawyer in Star Trek 6. Like the clean. I think he plays the same guy in Star Trek 6, but I'm not
Oh,
sure.
I was just gonna ask, does that guy come back, and does what he's mentioning come back in the later movies?
Yeah, Star Trek 6 is about peace between the Federation and the Klingons. Sorry,
Nice.
spoilers.
No, from Khan to through the rest of the original cast series, they are continuing a sort of through line of the Klingon. The Klingon is a through line in the story.
These three, the three we just watched, they connect the best, but technically they do
Yeah.
try to connect 2 through 6 because 5 starts out and the ship is like not good. It's like the ship they got wasn't really ready yet.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, I don't know, not really looking forward to number 5 because I've heard it's the worst one, but I guess I'll save it for that show.
A lot of people think it's the worst one, and that means I'm looking forward to it the most.
You know what? Let's just talk about it here. Let's just talk about 5 now. I haven't seen it.
We're done with 4.
Yeah, let's just move on to 5.
And Shatner directs it, right?
Right.
Oh,
After
that'll be interesting.
Nimoy had directed the prior 2, so he's like, all right, how hard could it be?
Right.
Speaking of Nimoy directing, with Search for Spock, he tried to get these supporting cast, all these other characters, their own, screen time and their own parts of the story and their own character development a little bit. This time he succeeded at doing that way more, even though it's all like jokey stuff.
Yeah, this is like a totally different thing from the previous movie, and I think he has excelled. I mean, I read that they gave him a lot more freedom with this one to do whatever he wanted to do, and this whole whale thing was his idea. And everyone thought he was crazy. Someone said to him, like, this is either the best idea or the worst idea ever. No one had like any faith, and then they did have faith ultimately, but I think the plot is so out there that that's what makes it charming, and that's what makes it work. It wasn't just the same old thing of like a scary looking villain like wants to take revenge on Kirk for something he did 30 years ago or whatever.
It's definitely a Star Trek story to me. This fits with like the original series to me.
And they had a couple episodes of the original series where they went back to modern day Earth. They time traveled, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't. They went to like Earth's past. They went to Earth. They went to modern day Earth, but they also went to Earth's past. And there's one where they go to the past, and I think Kirk, or maybe actually Spock, he has some relationship with some woman, and they fall in love. And then they're like, we got to leave because she has to die. And they figure out that her dying sets in motion, like some kind of butterfly effect that makes the Nazis like die or whatever, like some crazy thing like that. And they're like, oh, we have to leave and like let her die. But like, oh, we love her. It's a good one.
Nice.
Colin, the slingshot effect going around the sun.
Yeah.
As at warp speed as a means of time travel, that was sort of. He says that they'd done it before. They had done it in the original series, right?
Yeah, they did it on accident, I think, in the original series, and then they realized that they could do it on purpose, but it's too dangerous to like really do. But because the whale thing came up, they were like, "This is a good time to roll the dice on this one."
And then by the future episodes of the Next Generation, time travel is just some button that you press. It's like back in time.
Not
just
quite.
Chase the Borg and you'll go back in time.
Exactly.
Not quite, but yeah. No, in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, there's an episode of the original series where they go to the mirror world, which is like an alternate dimension where everyone has an evil twin, basically. And they're not necessarily evil, but they're basically an evil twin. And Star Trek Deep Space Nine goes there like once a season. And like their explanation for how easy it is just really haphazard. It's like, oh yeah, there's like a thing, and if you put it on the transporter, you transport to the other side. You gotta watch out.
There's an episode of Futurama where they visit a telescope that allows you to see into other dimensions, but there's only one other dimension, and it's exactly like ours, except everyone's wearing a cowboy hat.
Yeah, that's a good place. I actually switched with my guy from there.
Yeah, I knew it.
There's a moment when they get the message, they're like on their way back to Earth to face trial, and there's a moment where they get the message that the Earth is doomed, and Shatner like turns really dramatically and thoughtfully, and you don't know what he's gonna say, and for a second I was hoping he was gonna say like, "We got away with it, we're free."
I really like the part when like the space probe shows up on Earth and it starts like fucking with the ocean and the clouds and like storms start happening and like everything's going haywire in the president's like or in the Starfleet's like command center or whatever they're in, and you got that weird alien dude and he's pushing buttons or whatever, and he's like, Leningrad has lost all electrical power.
Oh, did you guys notice that one of the other captains they talk to when all this shit is going bad? Did you notice who he is? He's an Indian guy.
Yeah.
The one who looks like he's reading a teleprompter off.
Yeah, he's not facing the camera for some reason. Yeah.
You know we've talked about him before while we were doing a podcast on another movie. You know what movie it was? You don't know, you didn't immediately recognize that guy?
No.
He's Bond's buddy in Octopussy. The
Oh,
guy who was
really?
a former tennis pro.
I don't remember that at all. Oh, that's weird.
Do you remember
Small
that
world.
James Bond goes to India in Octopussy?
I do remember when James Bond goes in. Actually, I've kind of repressed most of Octopussy.
And he has
my
that
memory
guy,
has blocked
and they're
that
on
off.
they're on the little taxi cab in the
Yeah,
chase,
yeah, and
and
he's
then
got-
he
yeah,
grabs
he's
the
got the
tennis
racket.
racket and he hits the
Yep.
guy with the tennis racket, and that's like a little tongue-in-cheek thing. Like this guy
I
is
do
actually
remember now. I
It's
didn't.
the,
know
it's the
that
same
was
guy.
I'll take your word
VJ.
for it.
His name's VJ. I forgot the last
VJ. I remember the
name.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that sound design they use for the alien probes sound effect. I think that was really
Yeah.
effective.
The wub 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 wub.
Yeah, it's like the two things is like wub, 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 and then
The wub 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 I read is actually it's literally Spock. What's his name? Leonard Nimoy's voice. He literally went up to a microphone and just went wub 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 wub, and then they
Yes.
altered his voice, and that's what it is.
But then when
because
you
they
play
couldn't-
with the go on, sorry.
I was just gonna say they couldn't find the right sound. He like knew specifically what he wanted, but like the sound editors couldn't get the thing that he knew what he wanted, and so they were like, "Well, what do you want it to sound like?" And he went up to the mic and did that, and they were like, "Great, we got it."
they spent like 40 hours the previous week working on it, and then they're like,
Yeah.
"All right, fine, whatever, we'll do your thing."
Or what was even weirder is that like throughout the production, they would just hear Leonard Nimoy just in the corner going, "Wub wub 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 wub."
Yeah, it's part of the process. You have to get those characters to really feel the presence of the space probe.
Yep. So so they decide to do the time warp again, and what do you think of the
yeah.
because I thought my big complaint is the computerized sun looks super cheesy and dumb when they get close to it. But what did you think about the trippy
The hallucination?
actual
They no doubt like $10 million
We are
sequence.
playing with time and space.
Everybody knows that's what happens when you travel through time. Like, it's,
Of course, you see random puddles of water and
giant heads
a
and
man
clouds.
falling through.
A dummy floating through space.
Yeah.
It was very Twilight Zone.
I love
I
that part.
actually really like the effect. I know what you mean, that the sun doesn't, the quality of the render doesn't look great, the skin of the sun, if you will, but the shot of the bird of prey going towards the sun and then looping around it is actually, I think, very cool looking and very dynamic.
And definitely was to scale.
Yeah,
Right.
no, yeah.
Well, right. Okay, fair enough.
I like
But-
the wider shots. I felt like whenever it got close, I was like, oh, now I've seen too much sun.
Right.
Yeah, the sun looks a little bit like lava from like a PS2 era video game.
Right.
Sorry.
It looks like a fireball. That you,
Did ILM do these effects?
They
I think
did.
I read that somewhere.
I
I'll
think the
tell
one
you-
that looks really good is in the end when the ship is above the little whaling boat. I think
Yeah.
that looks really real.
I'll tell you what
Except
else ILM
that
did.
it doesn't cast a shadow on anything underneath it.
It does.
Right.
It has a big shadow underneath it.
There's one.
No.
I know what you mean, Matt.
Well,
There's
it's-
one shot where where the shadow disappears. But
Yeah, it is
comes
casting
back.
a shadow on the boat. I'll tell you what ILM did that really impressed me is I spent half this movie thinking like, how the fuck did they get such great underwater shots of these whales? And then it turns out they're just animatronic whales that ILM built for the thing. And like they said, they used almost no real shots of whales, which blew my mind because the whale shots
crazy.
looked really, really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that surprising because it would be impossible to get such great shots of whales. But I wasn't until that final shot of the whale communicating with the probe, where like you see its unblinking eye and it's just sitting there like a dead fish. But when the whales were moving, I was like totally believing 100% that they were real.
Well, you know.
Well, I think
if-
some of it is stock footage of whales like swimming underwater.
And you know, if it wasn't for human beings, we would have whale actors. Because the population would be large enough to support whales of all professions.
That's true.
God,
What do you guys think of the what do you guys think of the whaling footage that they showed in the museum?
It's disturbing.
Oh God.
It was very disturbing.
Graphic.
It was super graphic.
Yeah,
I was shocked and appalled.
That woman watches that every day, twice a day on the tour. That's why she's like, okay, you guys are talking to me. Let's go for pizza.
I used to give the tour at the NBC lot, so I feel her pain.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Later when they're at dinner and Kirk is like, "You're upset about losing the whales," and she's like, "You're very perceptive." It's like it's the only goddamn thing you talk about. Even when you're on the tour, you're stopping the tour to be like, "I'm really upset about these whales because I'm emotionally attached to them." Sorry, strangers, I'm digressing here. On with the tour.
I watched the movie a couple. Oh, sorry, go on, Colin.
You got to stop deferring to him, Matt. It's just you got to tell these idiots that it's your turn to talk.
I love their little date so much. No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space.
Oh, a landlubber, eh?
Yeah. But also a good comedic moment when he basically powers through the explanation of who and where he comes from.
Yeah.
And
the best part, I suppose you're going to tell me they don't have money in the future. Well, we don't.
We don't. No, but he does this little. I mean, I gotta give credit to Shatner. I think he does these little. I know he's known for being super like idiosyncratic and quirky and stuff, but there are these little moments where you're like, it is super engaging to watch. When he tells the story of how he's from the 23rd century and he's a captain on the blah blah blah, he swishes his
Michelob.
His Michelob a little bit before he sort of says the last three words of the sentence. And I thought it was awesome. I thought it was super funny. It was like a beautiful little punctuation at the end of the joke, you know?
I love that when he drinks it, he's acting like he's never drank like 1980s American beer before. Like, what the fuck am I drinking? Like,
do you think he likes it or he doesn't like it?
I think he likes it, but he's like, he's like confused by it as well.
Believe me, the Michelob endorsement came with a clause that he had.
He must like it.
Yeah, he had to look like
that cannot be in doubt.
So he's like, Michelob, nice.
That's
like
excellent choice, sir.
I was amazed he didn't look right at the camera and went like, that's smooth, but good beer taste. I like how they like it. So we got a good joke when they land where he's like, "Everybody remember where we parked," which is, that's a solid.
It doesn't make sense for him to say that.
No, it doesn't.
I expected him to pull out like a little fob and click it, right?
Beep, beep, beep.
Right.
And then we got like the 1980s music comes blaring in, and they're downtown San Francisco, and we get the double dumbass on you, which is the best line in the movie. But also, like, why are they walking in the middle of the road? They don't have roads or vehicle-only lanes in the future. They can't figure out to walk where everyone else is walking and like not step in front of traffic. Do they not have? They don't have vehicles in the future? I don't understand this.
No, you know how we were talking about.
Would they just wander into the streets like idiots?
You know how we were talking about the ships being like really like antiseptic, everything's clean and perfect and everything. They try to give you the impression that the whole society is like that.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they don't have vehicles that they ride in, and
they all fly. They all fly or they beam.
Fly in what? They just
the little shuttles, or they beam. You can beam. You can beat the traffic beaming every day.
I refuse to believe that in this utopian world they don't have segways, at least.
What does it mean, exact change?
I think that's a good joke.
It's great.
Solid joke. And
it was a great punctuation too to Kirk's like smug, right. Powers of observation or whatever he says.
Right.
Once they get to the 80s, there's a funny line in every scene.
Every scene works. Everything that they cut to works. The only one that doesn't work is there's a cool shot where Sulu and Scotty and Bones are like walking down the street, and a Chinese woman comes out and she's like yelling at her child, and then it just like cuts away. There's kind of nothing in that scene.
You didn't get it?
That's what the Yellow Pages backdrop.
Yeah,
it was like find what you need. But I actually I didn't get it the first time I saw that scene either, because I'm distracted by the people yelling at each other, and I miss the fact that their house is a giant billboard for like they don't know where to find something, and then there's a big billboard that says find what you need.
Yeah, that's a visual joke. It's like where are we gonna find that? And literally above them it says need to find something, use Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
Right. I actually read also that there was more to that scene where they were going to reveal that little boy is actually Sulu's like great grandfather or something.
Oh, that would be
And
cool.
I forget why. There was some reason why they couldn't shoot the rest of the scene, and they just had to move on, and they didn't get it.
Because Sulu says, San Francisco, I'm from here.
Oh, nice,
Right,
nice
exactly.
Sulu impression.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish there was more Sulu in this movie because I feel like even his part of the mission, I didn't even understand what he was doing until I saw him picking up the giant, plexiglass things with the helicopter. I didn't understand why he's like. I was like,
Right.
why is he flirting with his helicopter pilot? Is he trying to get laid or something?
Well, actually, there was another scene that got cut too. He was supposed to I guess, get in a fight with someone and steal the helicopter, and they just didn't shoot it. So
or they had a shot of the helicopter pilot in bed smoking, shirtless, and Sulu's like sneaking out the bathroom window with his helicopter keys.
Yeah. Oh my.
I'll be right back.
Oh my!
I'll always be your co-pilot.
They kind of imply that Sulu did the most work. He has to learn how to fly. That's like us learning to drive a chariot.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to feed the horses
And then also steal it.
yeah, and then also
Right.
stealing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he is the consummate pilot. He can fly anything. And
Yep.
I do think that's a cool. That is
Yeah.
a cool.
And when he gets
moment.
back in the bird of prey, he's like complaining that he's like used to helicopter controls now.
Yeah.
I like when Kirk he pawns off the glasses, and he's like, "I'll give you $100 for it," and he's like, "Is that a lot? I don't know." And then the immediate next scene is them like huddled, and he's like hastily just like handing out like bills to everyone. He's like,
$10
"That's
for
all
each
there is."
person. Yeah.
He can
Yeah.
take down Khan, the genetic Superman, but he can't outsmart the antique salesman,
Right.
store clerk. Yeah, but again, another great piece of time travel logic, right? When he sells the glasses and he says they're just gonna get gifted to me again by, they're gonna find their way through
Yeah.
time, and I'm gonna end up
Right.
getting gifted.
Wasn't that a
them again.
birthday present? That's the
From,
beauty of it.
from
It will be
Bones,
again.
yeah.
But the best part of all this whole like sequence is the nuclear wessels. I mean, that's like the piece
That
de
was
resistance.
so good.
Why is he like Uhura's the communications officer, so why is he taking the lead on talking to strangers with that accent? That he knows he has that accent.
I feel like they never know what to do with Uhura.
they
She's
are-
like never doing the thing that she's supposed to be doing in any of these movies.
Yeah, I feel like Chekhov's not great either, but at least he's got a shtick. I mean, as actors go, I think they're the weakest links of the whole cast. But at least
Yeah.
Chekhov's got like his funny accent shtick that he does, and he's kind of funny looking, and they give him funny stuff to do. They really don't do anything with Uhura, and that's why I found their whole section of the thing the least compelling, except when he was running out of the when he was trying to escape.
I'm
from
on
the
that scene
battleship,
right now. I'm
which
on that
I
scene right now. Yeah.
I cracked up the entire time when he's trying to escape from that battleship. I was laughing my ass off, and then he jumps on the thing. It's like, oh shit, and then he's just laying on the ground dead. And I'm like, wait, what?
He almost gets away, and then he has just a slight stumble, and then just collapses.
Not to mention they now have his phaser. He like left that.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and his
So-
communication device
communicator.
too.
Yeah.
and his credentials too, right?
Yeah. That scene, like I agree with you that Chekhov, the guy Walter Koenig, whatever.
Koenig.
Yeah. I agree that he is kind of a weaker performer of some of the other ones, but also they find things that he really can do, and the scene where he's being interrogated by the guy is so funny because of how he's playing it. It's just all right. If you don't do this, you're through. Can I go?
Yeah. But it was kind of low-hanging fruit, but it was a joke that had to be done. He's Russian. It's the 1980s.
Right.
He
Right.
meets an authority figure. We have to do this joke. And it was done well, and he was great in it, and it was super funny. I laughed out loud. Thought it was great.
My question is, what good is having a guard dog patrolling this battleship if they can't smell spacemen from the future that are like in the stairwell below them? Like, that's a bad dog.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Navy dog training isn't what it used to be, or it's better now. I don't know which one.
Should we talk more about the other not altogether wonderful actor in this movie, the mom from Seventh Heaven?
Oh yeah, isn't it weird that she's the mom from Seventh Heaven and the
Yeah.
guy from the first one was the dad from
I had
Seventh
to,
Heaven?
I'm embarrassed to admit that I had to look it up because I was like, where do I know this like knockoff Jane Fonda from? I've definitely
I know her
seen
from
somewhere
Child's
before.
Play.
Well,
Yes,
I definitely know her from Seventh Heaven, and I was just thinking like, where have I seen her? And when I saw it, I was like, oh my god, she's in this too. It's like they
Yes.
recruited their entire cast from.
Harris was a closet like Seventh Heaven super fan. He
Oh,
knows
yeah.
every episode.
Every episode.
No, for years now. For years, like at least once a month, in my head, I'm like, isn't it weird that they're both from Seventh Heaven and they're in two different Star Trek movies? And then
Yeah,
I have
that's
to like,
really odd.
and then I have to like avoid, colliding with the guardrail and stuff like that.
Ugh. How long was I out? We forgot to mention the punk rocker on the bus scene.
Oh, yeah,
which is
that's a good
great.
one.
Also, yeah,
That was great.
Any
It's-
particular take on that, or just
just that it
to
was
mention
great. I love
that it
how
was a
his
thing
head
that
just like
happened?
hits the stereo. That actor, the guy who did it, who was like apparently an associate producer or someone on this movie, he just nailed it.
I like how Spock apparently kills this man, and the entire bus bursts into applause. He's like he just collapses motionless, and everyone's like, "Is he dead? I don't care. I didn't care for his music."
You don't do that on a crowded bus. You don't do that.
Growing up and like taking the New York City subway and like dealing with some of those musicians or like what have you, I would probably clap too if someone Vulcan death.
Yeah, that's a
death
total
pinched
New
them
York
or whatever.
subway moment.
The
for sure.
song he's listening to, literally the chorus is "I hate you."
Yeah.
So I read about that dude too, the associate producer who played that part, and he was really he loved punk music, I guess. So he was really specific about what the punk should look like, and he wrote that song, and I think he recorded that song.
Nice.
Wow.
That's
That's
great.
good.
And he was just trying to like sell his cassette tapes on the bus. And
Exactly.
And Spock killed him.
He was just trying to like he was trying to launch his second career.
Yeah.
So Harris, you started talking about Dr. Jillian Taylor, and
Oh my
I have
God,
a
she's
funny-
got a name. I didn't even realize that. I kept on calling her a whale doctor all the time in my notes.
She says in the beginning, "My name is Dr. Jillian Taylor, but you all can call me Jillian." Like, okay, what else did you think we were gonna call you?
Right.
Anyway, I'm watching this movie, and at the end, when she's kissing Kirk goodbye or whatever, Colleen comes into the room and she's watching that scene, and she's like, "I have a question for you, a serious question." I'm like, "Okay," and she's like, "Do you really like this movie, or are you just like pretending that you like it because it's like nerd culture kind of stuff, and like you just want to be cool because you like it?"
Your wife knows you
that's
so well.
That's a valid
like-
question.
I'm like,
Valid.
"What do you mean? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "You've watched 30 seconds of this movie. Like, you're assuming that it's bad." And she's like, "No, I know it's bad. This is terrible."
She's wrong.
But if you
We got
didn't
into-
like Wrath of Khan, then you're not going for nerd points.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Unless
I
he's
just
trying
go
to-
in blind.
Unless he's trying to be that nerd that the hipster nerd.
Subvert. Right.
Yeah,
subvert
it's
it.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the hipster nerd. It's like everyone loves Wrath of Khan, but
Right.
I think it's over. I think it's
Actually, I
overrated.
prefer
really,
Voyage Home.
Voyage Home is the secret best gem of the bunch.
But then wouldn't I hate this movie too? Isn't this like a renowned like Star Trek lore?
I think this movie gets a lot of shit about the whales, and sort of the save the earth kind of message. And so
Yeah.
I don't walk around thinking people talk about this as like one of the best of the series, despite the whole even odd thing.
I
It's
don't,
what-
I don't know, like I know nothing about it. So really, you Colin, you could probably speak to it better. But I am shocked if this is regarded as one of the best ones in the series. That would really surprise me, just because it's so different and it's so, I don't know, unconventional. And it just doesn't feel very Star Trek-y to me. So
there's a
Harris,
few things.
I love you. We've been covering movies for years now, and you're so fucking unpredictable. I just can't ever peg like if Harris is gonna like something or hate it, or even if he says he likes something and then later on, when he's talking about it in past tense rather, he says he doesn't like it, or vice versa. It's just a total enigma. You're an enigma.
I do feel like there's a bunch
Carry
of
on.
I do feel like there's a bunch of stuff Harris doesn't like that he enjoys not liking so much that it's kind of suspicious that he might like it. But
He's the guy he just described.
yeah.
I mean, I definitely don't like Thunderball or Octopussy or what's the one where they go in space?
Moonraker.
Moonraker.
And you know what the title is. See, that's what I'm talking about. He chose to not know what the title is when he knows what the title is.
It doesn't deserve me to acknowledge it.
You also talked shit about Mission Impossible 2 until we actually covered it. Then when you suddenly loved it,
I was
and
kind of
gave it a
amazed how
7.
good it was. It was really good.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And Colin did the opposite. He did not like it, but then later on in our review of the whole series, said he liked Mission.
Well, let's not expect consistency from these things.
Did you like Wrath of Khan, Harris?
Me? Oh, no, Harris.
I loved Wrath of Khan. I think I gave that one a 9. That was
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
But he hated with a passion Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which me and Colin argued, actually really me and Sean Jarrett argued that is not as bad as you're making it sound. And yes, it's bloated and overlong, but
super boring, so bad.
No, the problem with that one is obviously the Seventh Heaven guy. And
I thought he was a strength of that, honestly.
no.
The problem with that is that they literally had 30 minutes of story, and they were just like, let's just shoot it 2 hours anyways.
I don't view that as a problem.
Exactly. This is
okay. So this movie that we're talking about now. So here's the thing. There's a few things about it that kind of separate it from the rest of the, Star Trek movies. It is so caught up in the time travel plot line that it's almost viewed to be like not in the same genre almost. Like what Matt was saying, not Matt McGregor, but the other Matt was saying, the whales thing, it almost seems like such a niche kind of interest to some people that, constructing a whole plot of a whole mainstream movie around it seems strange. And then it's also like it's the most friendly for young audiences. So like unlike most Star Treks where you have to have like a bunch of nameless characters die to like show you what the stakes of what is going on is, no one actually dies and no one shoots anyone at all.
However, there's more swearing in this one than any other Star Trek, I think.
Yeah, double
And that
dumbass.
the whale scene with the blubber, cutting the blubber. Oof.
They kind of make fun of swearing as a concept, though. They're like, "Oh, this is like just what people do," and that's kind of like, So it's really so different from what you expect that takes away from it for a lot of people. And then, like there is the classic argument that, Wrath of Khan is hands down the best. We know this, which a lot of people like Harris say. Although Star Trek 3, I think some people would argue is better than 2.
But, obviously, drunk people probably.
Colin, would you say that this movie, having just heard what you said, would you call this movie the Last Jedi of the Star Trek series?
I think this is the return of the Jedi of the Star Trek series.
Interesting.
I really do, because if you look at, Wrath of Khan as A New Hope, and then you look at Search for Spock as The Empire Strikes Back, then this would be the Return of the Jedi. And I think I haven't laid out my case to make all those comparisons, but I think you could make more comparisons.
I feel like your comparison is just counting in order.
Yeah, exactly. More. I think there are more comparisons than that.
But this is where Spock comes back, right?
Right.
Like, he literally came back in the last one, but this is where he figuratively comes back. Right?
And in Empire Strikes Back, the Empire is winning the whole time, and like Spock is dead the whole time in Star Trek 3.
And honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons Star Trek 3 is lame, because I did not, like, I'm not a huge Spock fan, but I didn't realize how much I missed him until he was back, and I was like, oh yeah, it needs that character. This is not a great thing when McCoy has to do that much heavy lifting.
You know what spells it out, though, is that scene with McCoy and him talking where McCoy's like, don't you want to, like, talk a little bit, and Spock is like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't understand. And he's like, maybe we could talk about death. And he's like, well, I couldn't really talk to you about it without a frame of reference. And McCoy's like, so you expect me to die to be able to talk to you about dying?
McCoy's awesome. He's so awesome.
He's so good. And then Spock is like, hold on, I'm getting several distress calls. And Bones is, I don't doubt it.
He's like, I bet you are.
And the movie is also not. This maybe is too esoteric or whatever, but I think it's like the movie is about the Wrath of Khan had this great sort of like subtext going on, and about death and rebirth and becoming young again, and Kirk realizing that he still had good years ahead of him, and then this movie has a subtext going on. It's all about Spock, like it's the stuff where he talks to his mother on Vulcan, and Kirk is always sort of trying to pull out of him the more human side of him, right?
Right.
And so we're led to believe that that's what this is really about, is Spock coming back and like remembering who he once was, and remembering that he was also part human. But the subtext doesn't work. Like I think it almost works better as an adventure movie, and the subtext doesn't work quite as well as it did in Khan, right? Like Khan, it's so like a perfect package.
But at the end, Kirk is
Yes.
throwing Spock
No,
into the water, and they're
and no
splashing
doubt
around
that-
and doing cannonballs
Oh
off
yeah,
the, off the
I
ship.
didn't see enough dunking in that part,
no,
by
no.
the way. Sorry to interrupt you. I wanted to see a little more dunking.
There was a 20-minute sequence of them playing Marco Polo that got cut.
Well, no, it's not that it doesn't see through the entire idea of that theme, but it's that it doesn't lace through the actual plot
Right.
as well.
and
as it
where
does
were
in
the
Kirk
chicken
and Khan.
fights?
Exactly. Yeah.
The chicken fights.
The what?
He said, "Where were the chicken fights?"
That's in the deleted. That's in the end credits. That's like a credit cookie. Yeah, exactly.
Spock, get on my shoulders. Get on my shoulders. I think you can knock Scotty down.
Kirk's a little bitch. Let's do this.
So are you guys old enough to remember when Save the Whales was like a real thing?
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, every year, I forgot what it was, but there was a charity that sold stuff that was just like Save the Animals. So it'd be like a T-shirt with a sea turtle on it means your money goes to like protecting sea turtles in their environment or whatever. And every year there was like a fundraiser like that in elementary school.
It seems such such a quaint, silly idea in 2020 that we ever cared about saving the whales. Now it's like, Jesus, can we save
yeah.
ourselves?
Save the human beings.
Can we save anything?
Yeah, save anything.
Yeah, just save something.
Fuck. I will say this about this movie. I've talked about it in the other podcasts. So I've seen, when I saw all these movies, I was the youngest of any of us. I was very, very young. And when I was, before teenage years, this was hands down my favorite of all of them. I thought this one was the best. It was the funniest, and that was the best. And until I got older, I was like, didn't appreciate that there was other stuff.
Is that a Nuke the Whales?
It's
sign?
Nuke the Whales. Yeah, it doesn't fit the aspect ratio, but I much prefer Nuke the Whales over Save the Whales.
Yeah. That was the other thing. It was Save the Whales and no nukes were the big. This nice little pastiche.
For people who can't see, we should say that there's
Yes.
a new background behind Matt
Yeah.
that says
Nuke the
Nuke the
Whales.
Whales.
Apparently. And it has a bunch of whales being nuked.
being nuked. Yeah, I wouldn't have known it said that unless you said it.
The other thing about seeing this movie when I was a kid is the probe, the alien probe that shuts down like Earth, basically. I thought was actually scary when I was young, and now I think is just like cool looking. So I don't know.
And something not addressed, right? It just goes away. It
Right.
leaves.
Well, we don't know what
Right.
don't know what he talked about with the whales.
Very convenient.
That's right. That's
very
right.
convenient plot device.
That's one of the most fun things to speculate about. Is like what what do they say to each other?
And those loose ends, I think, I find that particularly charming. Like, I don't think you need an answer to every
No,
single thing. I like that it was mysterious and
But this
Cool.
this movie
did
is
you-
all about loose ends and convenient coincidences, and that's
yeah,
just
the
one of
whales
them.
just happen to be being released tomorrow at noon.
Also, he spends a lot of time trying to weasel out of her the information of when the whales are being released, he only has a day to get them anyway. Like, like, why does he spend so much time trying to find out when they're being released? All he needs to know is their tracking numbers if they're going to be released, or else just get freaking, steal them tonight. Like, what's the problem?
You don't know how to talk to whale biologists, okay?
Well, this one is clearly a little hard up. I get the men in San Francisco clearly are not listening, and they're not interested. And she is willing to settle for whatever
comes her way. I had this theory after I watched the movie twice, and on the second viewing, I thought, wait a minute, she's sort of. I think they're trying to imply that she's kind of on the spectrum a little bit, right?
Wait, what?
Go on.
The whole thing with like her,
like she's attracted to the whales sexually.
No,
not that spectrum.
Right, not
the Kinsey scales, Colin.
Not the human animal spectrum.
Yeah.
No, the autistic spectrum, if you will. I think she,
No, I think it's what I
have a photo.
Sorry.
She has a photographic memory.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There was one other thing. She at one point goes out of her way to say, like, I have an extreme single-mindedness that I just can't let things. I don't know. She expressed like a frustration that sounded particularly spectrum-y to me.
And she shifts gears kind of spontaneously and without much warning, which is
right.
sort
First
of
she kicks them out.
It could be bad screenwriting, or maybe it's just a really in-depth character that we don't get as much as we could.
Right.
She kicks them out and then immediately like lets them into her car.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
right.
get out of my aquarium. Hey, you guys need a lift?
Yeah.
She says, I got a tire iron right where I can get at it. Okay.
Another great comedic moment with the repartee between Kirk and Spock too, right? Where she says, "Do you like Italian?" And they do the whole yes no yes no thing, which I thought was super funny.
Also,
a little too much LDS.
Yeah.
Right.
Also funny, but also then Spock doesn't go to dinner anyway, so it's like, what was the point of that?
Yes,
right.
There's so much stuff that just doesn't make sense.
No, ma'am. No dipshit.
The scene where they let Spock out at the park is also hilarious, though. Like, what is he gonna do? Just like hang out in the bushes? It's his way.
It's his way.
Yeah.
Well, who teleports him up? Like, does he teleport himself up? I don't know.
Scotty always does all the beaming.
But wasn't Scotty making
At
plexiglass?
the plastic factory or whatever?
Time had passed.
Time had passed.
Unclear.
Are we to believe that no one like is walking through this park during the day?
It is a really big park.
I was expecting somebody to find it and like be camped out under the imaginary invisible whatever. Also later when she goes back looking for him, she runs face first in the landing gear of the ship and recovers in like a second.
And the trash men.
Oh, the trash men at the beginning.
When you
I
first meet.
I couldn't
They're
decipher.
like, we're
either
definitely
of their...
witnessing aliens and UFOs, but let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Also, where are our accents from? They're just sort of generically tough.
Yeah. They're like Brooklyn guys.
Yeah, they're my least favorite. I don't want to spend $60 for a toaster oven.
Oh, and also when she's interacting with the invisible spaceship and she's supposed to be like pressing against it, but her hands are like, I was like,
some great miming.
Could we get like, is this like a business idea? Could that be a thing to get like mime lessons for actors that need to pretend to interact with invisible stuff?
That is the part where Colleen came in and started watching.
That is a terrible part to start watching it because it's like, what? Is this the best we could do? Just pretend to lean on something. And she's like, I am. No, but pretend it's all in the same place. That's what I'm doing. Okay, can we bring in the mime double?
She's like, this woman is a terrible actress. And I turned to her and I'm like, she's the mom from Seventh Heaven.
like that's the defense. Oh, well, I stand
Excuse
corrected.
me. Yeah.
You're right, Matt. I'm so sorry.
I will be silent now.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I do like when she's like trying to get a hold of Kirk at the end and like banging on the ship. She's screaming, Admiral, Admiral.
Yeah,
like,
it makes
that's
her
her
look
name
way
for him.
crazier.
Yeah. Then let's talk about the hospital sequence. We haven't talked about that when they go to save Chekhov.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
One little mistake.
Bones walks past an old woman, and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And she's like, "Oh, kidney paralysis or whatever."
She says she needs dialysis.
Dialysis. And he's like, "Dialysis?" Ugh. And he just gives her like a pill, which she mimes eating. She's like,
But his insistence that like they're living through the medical dark ages.
Yeah, he says Dark Ages.
Yeah.
The Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
Don't drill holes in his head.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a good. I found it a very satisfying nod to
I
how
also like.
antiquated we are.
I also feel like we're not getting enough bones up to that point, and like he gets to steal the scene for a couple scenes.
Yeah.
The doctor gave me a pill and I grew a new kidney.
I love that woman
yeah.
just screaming it in the hospital.
She is
like
such a
10
bad
doctors
actress.
behind her.
She couldn't even act like she was eating a pill.
No, she's
Yeah.
real. She's a real woman.
She's a real woman who they actually cured her kidney disease for this part. She was really method. She insisted on both having a kidney problem and then having it cured.
The other doctor says fundoscopic examination. Fundoscopic examination is unrevealing in these cases.
I mean, he does have the advantage of like thousands of years of medical knowledge that they don't. I feel like he could be a little less condescending. I'm sure if they went to future medical school, they would know all
Right.
this stuff too.
But
Right,
that's Bones. He didn't even want to go to the past in the first place. He was hoping for a better solution, but this is all that they were allowed to do.
He's really crabby. He's really crabby about it. What about the when they're racing to save the whales and the guys have the harpoon gun? How did the ship get low enough to interfere with the harpoon gun? Because when we see it later, it's like way up above the ship, the boat, the whaling boat.
Never
It was-
question these logistics.
Yeah, I don't.
I had real
I
issues with
don't. I
that.
don't recognize your question, sir. I don't
Well,
recognize its legitimacy.
Well, Colin, maybe I could explain it a little more. They're shooting down at whales that are below the bow of their boat. So how could it hit a ship that's floating above the bow of their boat? How, Colin?
Maybe I wasn't clear. I don't recognize the words you're saying as being
The bird of prey is
valid.
shaped like this, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe it was turned like that.
Yeah,
Maybe it was
so that-
turned like that. It was facing
Yeah.
them when it made itself appear.
It was emotionally correct, if not logistically correct.
Absolutely.
That's a pretty good answer. See, Colin?
I also like that the whales are released and like day one there's whalers, Norwegian whalers or Finnish or whatever
Right,
language
right.
they're
I
speaking.
couldn't tell what language
My
they were
subtitles
speaking.
just said foreign language.
Yeah.
Day one they're just there like let's make this happen.
Well, they actually just wait at the spot where the zoos drop off their extra whales.
yeah.
Yeah, like they're probably
There's some
just
prime
following
whaling
them.
in these waters here.
Yeah.
They probably are. They're probably just like, yeah, this is where they drop them off when they don't like, when they were in captivity and they have to get rid of them.
They beam up the water and the whales, and Spock has to take a guess as to like what their weight is and how like the calculations to slingshot back, which is
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Then the power goes out and their spaceship crashes to Earth with absolutely no power or guidance, and somehow that doesn't result in the thing busting into a billion pieces.
Yeah, that is definitely a great. That and when they landed on past Earth is fuzzy, and I
Yeah.
think they're just expecting you to think that that's just time travel. That
Just, yeah.
spaceships do this when they time travel.
Safe water landing is a part
Right.
of good time travel.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Sulu's a really good pilot. You saw him with that helicopter.
But he says while they're going down, he's like, "I've got no controls," and Shatner's like, "Try to keep the nose up," and he's like, "I got no controls."
But I think that's actually a testament to these Star Trek movies. Is that like fundamentally they're supposed to be us in the year 23 something, right?
Yeah,
Right.
And so it's
2370,
supposed to
I
be right. So it's supposed to feel like you're supposed to think, oh, this really could be a future version of us. Like there's a United Federation and we've joined with other species and blah blah blah. But there is an otherworldliness to it, and yes, a little bit of a hokiness to it that turns it into its own kind of hyper reality, and thus I don't expect total reality I totally forgive its flights of fancy,
Yeah,
even though it's supposed to be based on science.
We've talked about this before. The one of the best things about Star Trek is that it gives you an opportunity to tell basically any kind of story you want to, and that's like what I think people forget that. They get caught up in like, how do we represent it as like a real sci-fi universe that has, you know, these details that make it fit in, you know, some kind of more detail-oriented, extremely rigid, kind of structured world. And it's not really meant for that. It's meant as a starting place to tell big stories, basically, you know.
I zoned out for that, but I think for a sci-fi thing with such a nerdy and obsessive fan base that are so up their own asses about how smart their series is, it bugs me how much stuff they just completely don't give a shit about. Like, you know, how many inconsistencies are just like, don't worry about it. Don't think too hard about it.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. But
yeah, but you're becoming a fan now, and you just don't want to admit it. So you're one of them.
You know what I am a fan of?
Klingons?
When Shatner goes to save the whales at the very end, and they don't really explain why Scotty can't open the thing and why why Kirk's got to swim under the water. But what I am a huge fan of is Shatner's hairpiece.
Yes.
Is pretty high quality, and that's nice underwater work. That's like
You
Real
can see
Hair Club
scalp.
for Men. Yeah, that's Real Hair Club for Men infomercial type shit. That is really sophisticated.
I have yet to. No, sorry, Harris.
I was impressed. No, I'll yield the floor to somebody else who wants to praise the hairpiece.
No, you're absolutely. I was thinking the same exact thing when I saw him. Like, I can see scalp right now. So how are they doing this? Like, is there a bald cap on him, and then they put
CGI hasn't been invented yet.
I know, it's amazing.
But I just there are famous hair pieces, right, of actors that we know in pop culture, and William Shatner is one of those famous hair pieces. And I have a perverse desire to see him without the hairpiece. I want to know how it works.
He's one of the ones who just have never, you know.
Yeah, is there such a
right.
thing? Like, is that possible? Can you see?
I don't think there's ever been a picture of it. He used to steal he's got a this is like he was reputed to steal the hairpieces from the old original Star Trek. At the end of the shooting for the end of the season, you would steal the hairpieces and then wear them in the off season, and they'd have to make new ones each year because he'd have worn out the ones that he was wearing on the show in the between shooting seasons as his personal hairpieces. And then after the show ended, there's a lot of there's actually a blog that's like all about William Shatner's hairpieces throughout the years, and it was really fascinating reading because there's this whole dark ages, I think they call it, after the show ended, where he wasn't getting as much work and he wasn't getting as much roles, and the hairpieces were really bad, and they're like choppy and like they're all funky looking and dark, and they don't match the color, and so it's a really interesting like rabbit hole to jump down is the Shatner hairpiece odyssey.
Yeah.
You know, I was always taught that it was his real hair, which
That he got plugs?
which I'm very confused about. No, they were just like, no, he's not bald.
Yeah, but that's he went bald so early. It's like Humphrey Bogart wore a little hairpiece just in the front of his head for pretty much his entire career, and he wasn't famous until he was in his 40s. And basically, like, he went bald in his 30s, and just he never didn't have a hairpiece on. So if that's always like, if you start off with a hairpiece from such a young age, like Shatner was wearing one on the original series, so we've literally never seen him with his real hair. So it's always just a different kind of like, is he wearing the curly TJ Hooker hairpiece? Is he wearing the wavy later Kirk hairpiece, or kind of the smooth combed back early?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating.
It is.
Let's talk a little bit about Leonard Nimoy's directing career.
Do you just assume that I'm done with Shatner's hairpieces? I got another good 5-10 minutes of this. All right, let's talk about Nimoy.
I saw this movie once when I was a kid on the Sci-Fi Channel where it was a wig, and the wig was like possessed by like an alien or a demon or something, and it would like, if you wore the wig, it would kill you. But then people didn't know why the people were getting killed, so the wig just kept getting passed around. I don't remember the title, but
I think The Simpsons did an episode like that once.
Yeah, that was Homer inherits Snake's wig when he's executed, or his hair. He gets a hair transplant. Also, Lena Waithe.
Treehouse of Horror. Right?
Yeah, Lena Waithe just had a movie last year. I think it's called Bad Hair at Sundance. That was all about a weave that's a killer weave.
That's funny.
But yeah, we can move on from Shatner's hairpiece, although it's hilarious. I always assume that the episode about tribbles, whatever they are, was somehow related to his hairpiece multiplying exponentially.
Yeah, we never know. But yeah, he's splashing around in the water right now, and it looks like
It's
like
crazy.
man
It
hair
looks
to me.
good.
It's crazy. That's good. That's a very good job. Nice lace work, I think, is what they call that in the wig business. So let's talk
Do
about
they?
Nimoy's
How do you
directing
know that?
career.
The
How do you
truth
not?
comes out?
I don't. I don't know
Harris's
that.
hairpiece gives him 3 extra inches. He's not really that tall.
Yeah,
Oh, and that's why his name is Harris.
Harris.
it's short for hairpiece.
Little hairpiece was born today.
We'll call him Harris.
His brother John was so excited. Oh man. Yeah, I was trying to get into
Nimoy's
Leonard
directing
Nimoy's
career.
directing career. He only directed like 2 or 3 more movies after this, and then gave it up. Just like didn't want to direct stuff anymore. He did 3 Men and a Baby. Did you guys know that?
Is that what Tom
I
Selleck?
Yep.
I didn't know that, and I'm surprised and delighted by that. That revelation.
Yeah, that was also the
awesome.
highest grossing movie of 1987 or whatever year it came out, which shocked me to read.
Makes perfect sense to me. You got who do you have? Steve Guttenberg.
Steve Guttenberg,
You
Oh,
got
of course.
Ted Danson.
Ted Danson, and who's the third one?
Tom
Tom
Selleck.
Selleck.
Tom
Tom
Selleck. I
Tom
said it
Selleck.
like seconds ago.
My God, talk about a murderer's row of incredible actors.
Yes.
In 1987, that is like the height of all male everything.
They were all signing on to this movie, and they're like, "Who's the director? Nimoy, director of Voyage Home." Sign me up.
I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wave my normal.
That movie was a delight.
Yeah.
We should sign them for a movie now. I'm sure it'll do just as good.
I think Danson might be the toughest get at
Yeah,
this point.
Danson's on fire right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
Where's
Um,
Gutenberg?
Tom Selleck, as long as Tom Selleck gets to pitch his reverse mortgages in it, he's in. Here, you could take. We'll let you take some old people's houses if you come to our movie.
You know what Tom Selleck was in? The last season of TNT's Las Vegas.
Oh
Isn't
my
he on
God.
Blue Buds?
I love that show.
Blue
Yeah.
Bloods?
Yeah, but Blue Bloods sucks, and Las Vegas is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're not an old person. You wouldn't say that if you were an old person. They think
This is
Blue
an
Bloods
ongoing
amazing.
thing, Matt. This is an ongoing thing on our show. Where Colin just loves Las Vegas. TNT's Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's cool.
Is that the one with Josh Duhamel?
James Caan? Josh Duhamel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Josh Duhamel?
Josh Duhamel.
the poor man's
Duhamel?
Timothy Oliphant.
Duhamel?
Yeah, the
That's
poor
right.
man's Timothy Elephant. And
And of course James Caan. Yes.
Molly Sims.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Nikki Cox.
Love her.
I forgot the other woman's name. And there's like another woman.
Marissa. I want to say Marissa.
Mariska
something.
Hargitay.
No.
No.
Marissa Tomei.
No. Something else.
I
Never
was just
mind.
thinking about Nikki Cox the other day. What was that show that she was on that was like a Married with Children ripoff?
Unhappily
Oh,
Ever After.
Unhappily
It had a
Ever
puppet,
After.
right?
Yeah,
It had a
Totally.
puppet,
Yeah, it
right?
had
Yes, they had a puppet.
Yeah.
a bunny.
Voiced
or
by
no,
Bobcat Goldthwait.
yeah.
Puppet
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
That show was
Ahead of its time. If it had been
Yeah.
animated, if it
Yeah.
had been animated and everyone had been voiced by the Family Guy dude,
Seth MacFarlane.
yeah, Seth
Yeah.
MacFarlane, yeah, would have been a huge hit.
Yeah, isn't that kind of crazy? Like,
She was so hot on that show.
She was.
oh my god, yeah, of course. That's what her job is.
To be hot.
That is a good analysis of her career.
Who played the brother on that show?
Wasn't it? What's his name from?
It wasn't.
From
It wasn't Seth
Entourage?
Green, right? Wait, Entourage. Oh,
Was
it
it? I
was
think
from
I think it
Entourage.
was
That's
Seth.
right. No, it was E
What's his
from
name?
Entourage.
E.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Oh right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Kevin Connolly.
Yes.
I went to school with a kid named Kevin Connolly.
Kevin
No re-
Connolly
no
is from my
relation.
hometown.
Wow,
Really?
small world. Whatever happened to him?
He directed John Travolta in something that was
Yes.
supposed to be
A Gotti movie?
Gotti.
Oh wow, I heard that sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can't say for sure because none of us have seen it, and neither
My
has-
dad saw
neither
it.
has
and
anybody
he,
else.
He liked it.
Oh, your dad was one of the few people.
My dad saw it in the theater and liked it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I heard it wasn't that bad, but just Travolta's just not good in it. Well,
there you
Well,
go.
we'll have to watch it as a bonus movie.
oh God.
Leonard Nimoy,
Yeah.
though, also was a prolific photographer. He's done a lot of photography.
He
He
was
has-
also a prolific singer of Lord of the Rings themed pop songs.
And he has several books
that-
as well. He has like 3 books, doesn't he? Or
Wait, what's the Lord of the Rings pop song?
yeah, I don't know
He
what
sang,
that is.
You guys don't know. You guys never heard the legend of Bilbo Baggins?
No, did he?
I
sing
saw it on
So
his,
like a Weird
on his
Al thing?
Wikipedia page, but I was confused and I looked away as quickly as I could.
Are you
Yep,
gonna
the-
play it?
If I can find it.
Or
oh,
can you just explain it to us if you can't find it?
It seems like
Oh,
it might be hard to
geez! Now we're
explain.
getting an ad. Stop this! I don't need an ad.
We have enough ads at the head of the show for Patreon, which reminds me, we have a Patreon for $1 a month. You can subscribe and you get bonus content, which is hilarious and great. Okay.
So apologies to the listeners while Harris continues to search for this Lord of the Rings Hobbit song.
Yeah, I found it, and I can share the screen. I'm not sure if it'll play over our.
Was this from the animated film?
No, it is not. Matt,
What is
allow
it
me
from?
to share.
I don't
allow me to share
understand.
the screen, and I will play this for you guys.
Okay.
You're not giving us enough information to like set it up, though.
It's literally Leonard Nimoy wrote and performs a pop song about Bilbo Baggins, his favorite
Go ahead. You should be good to go,
literary
Harris.
character. All right, I am sharing right now.
Wait, is this from like the 70s?
Yeah, I believe so.
He's
Wait,
in Spock
He's
character.
he's Spock in this.
He's got the
Is
ears.
he wearing the
he's got
ears?
The hair.
I
Yeah.
don't think so, but he's already
think so.
he's got enormous ears. So
What's this Teletubbies bullshit that's happening?
it's kind of it's a real treat if you ever get a chance. The song is not much better either. It's got like weird instruments that
I
sound
like
like it's
this.
from like a one-man band.
It's called
wow.
Nimoy Sings Bilbo Baggins. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he's shot it himself, maybe.
This is great.
Yeah,
I don't
the
need
song
this
is
song.
the song is hilariously bad.
Do you think he was pissed when he wasn't cast in any of the modern Lord of the Rings movies?
Probably.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
Oh,
I
maybe he
guess
doesn't have the ears.
this is
But
the
they look
Bilbo-
like they're wearing ears.
They're wearing the ears. He's not wearing ears. They're wearing ears.
But
So
why
this
are
is
they
being
wearing ears? Are they
referential.
hobbits? Are they
I
hobbits?
guess they're hobbits, or maybe
Oh,
they're
maybe
Vulcans. I don't know. It's like the asking why.
What
with
the hell is that?
A piece of, I think it's people taking off clothes.
Oh, nice.
Asking why with a piece of art like this is just you're missing the point entirely. You don't ask why. You just say, "Hey, listen, he was Leonard Nimoy. Somebody said okay to this, and he did it."
If I was a studio executive and I saw this, the first thing I would think is hire this man to direct Search for Spock.
I think that's what did it. I think
That's
what
what
did it.
happened. He's like, I this won't be my first directing job, actually. Oh, really? What did you direct before this? Well, it's a little video called Nimoy Sings.
Bilbo
what is it?
Baggins.
Bilbo
You've forgotten
Baggins.
already.
I forgot already. I was gonna say Lord of the Rings, and I was like, that's not right. It was something else.
Yeah, so add singer-songwriter to his multi-hyphenate thing.
I had no idea. I'm
'cause-
so glad I
Yeah,
do.
He's kind of a fucking legend, you know. Like
He is.
I don't wanna overstate myself here, but
Yeah.
So I met him once.
What?
Dish.
Yeah, it's a super boring story. I just got to shake his hand and say I was a fan. I met him through my wife, whose family is was a little bit friendly with him. And she
Are they Vulcan?
introduced- not to my knowledge.
Those Vulcan human pairings are always
Only in
baffling
bed.
to me.
But and then another time, completely unrelated. This was years prior. I was on a flight. I was on an airplane, and I was sitting behind him and his wife. At least I assume it was his wife. And there was a movie play. This was at a time where there weren't TVs in the headrest in front of you. There was a movie playing that everyone could see on the plane on a big projector screen.
I remember
And,
those days.
I mean,
Those old
I'm
days.
35.
Yeah, all right.
back when they had a smoking section.
Sure.
I didn't never experience that.
And they were playing the movie Daddy Daycare, and I guess Steve Zahn's character in Daddy Daycare like is obsessed with Star Trek, I think, and he like wears a Star Trek shirt from the original series. And I was watching it. I just saw it on the screen. I'm looking at it, and I was like, well, I already knew Leonard Nimoy was sitting in front of me, so I look at the crack in between my seat just to see what his reaction is to this dude wearing a original series, Spock, crew shirt basically on screen. And I caught a moment where his wife like taps him on the arm and points it out to him, and he looks at the screen and he rolls his eyes. He's like, ugh. It was just such a perfect moment of me catching his frustration at like Star Trek pop culture like permeating everywhere. He can't escape it, even at 30,000 feet.
Yeah, everyone wanted him to be Spock, and he just wanted to sing about hobbits.
I feel like because he's the alien character, he's also somehow more symbolic of the intellectual property itself than the human characters are. Like he more represents, just an image of him more represents Star Trek in general than
Right,
an
because you've
image
got
of
this
Shatner.
too.
Yeah, it's like it has a lore, it has a whole culture, like it's a whole other made up culture.
Yeah, because we know about the neck pinch and the live long and prosper and everything, and the pointy ears. It's all recognizable, whereas nothing else is really from it. I mean, the ship and everything, but Captain Kirk doesn't have those iconic aspects to him.
Right, like, and Shatner was on T.J. Hooker also, so I guess there's some people who are like, he's still just a human in both of them. So I'm sure maybe there's some people who are like, I've only ever seen T.J. Hooker.
Yeah, the name Captain Kirk is synonymous with Star Trek, but now especially that Kirk has been played by more than one actor, it's not so much his look. Whereas Spock, even though he's played by different actors, has to maintain a specific character look because his look is, like you said, symbolic of something larger than the actor.
And he became iconic as that character also, like in the 60s. I don't know. Moving on.
Yeah, so the movie ends, the whales get saved, the probe flies away. They go to court, and they get charged with 9 different, crimes that they committed.
And apparently
get...
the second AD told all the background actors in their ridiculous costumes to really ham it up and do crazy stuff whenever anything happened. Just like look around.
This is highly irregular.
Yeah,
I love that. There was a lot of costumes and stuff going on, and
he was like, I need you all in an 11. An 11.
Well, yeah.
I will say, having been in a scene like this in a Star Trek movie...
Yeah, that's true. You have
also,
experience in Star Trek trial scenes.
Yeah.
I'm literally in a scene exactly like this, and I, too, hammed it up because that's exactly what they tell you, is to look shocked at everything that they say.
There was one woman who wasn't wearing funny alien makeup or whatever. She had this, like, frizzy blonde perm, and... I could feel that she felt this was her big break. Or maybe she was just trying to do what she was told, but she kept on popping up on camera like 6 different times, and every time with like the biggest expression on her face, like, oh my God, oh, did you see that? Yay, he's going to be a captain again. Oh, it's like everything was her bouncing around with like this huge, like always looking to her partner and grabbing somebody next to her and shaking them and being like, I can't believe it.
That's how it's done.
Yeah.
It's like a blue guy with antenna. He's like, I can't see out this mask.
And she's also doing it all without saying any of the words. So she's just mouthing them. She's just like miming what she's saying.
They probably had to do extra takes because she kept knocking prosthetics off of people.
Yeah.
Cut. All right. Get the antenna back on this guy.
All right. Good energy from all of you guys. You, lady, just dial it back a little bit.
Ma'am, can we have you change seats with the man behind you? What? No.
Man, we're just going to back you up. Just take a step back. Now take another step back. Now 3 more steps. Now 18 more steps that way and out the door. And don't stop till
She
you're in
falls
the
down
parking
hall.
lot.
They
Perfect.
realized
And roll.
They realized she was never acting when her reaction is just she starts screaming. What? Why?
All right, what do you say we rate this sucker?
Yep. I can
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to the Timothy Dolphin section of our podcast. We should have called it like Jonathan Whale or like something instead of dolphins. Like we should
Let's
Fly
not
whale
reinvent the wheel
somehow.
at this point.
reinvent the whale.
What's the whale from Carvel? Fudgy the whale.
Fudgy, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fudgy. Yeah.
We got George and Gracie is the name of the whales in this one,
Oh yeah.
which is like no longer a reference that holds any like cultural cachet or whatever.
Right.
When I was a kid, I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
is
it's
that?
also like
Even when this
it's also like the part when they name the authors on the
Yeah.
bus. They're like talking about authors.
I looked
like,
them
I
up,
didn't know
yeah.
either.
yeah.
Did you look them up?
I looked them up. Yeah.
Well, Tom Robbins is still pretty famous, but who was the other one? Something Jacqueline Suzette.
Suzanne. Yeah.
Jacqueline Suzanne.
Did
Yeah.
she do like
They-
she did the Valley of the Dolls, right?
That's right.
Something like
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
they were like precursors to like Jackie Collins and what's the other Danielle Steele. You know, like sort of
The Giants.
household name writers who just sort of shit out these
Yeah.
these popular novels. But yeah, no, that was also a great piece of dry humor, right?
Yeah, like
the
that line
Giants.
still works when you don't know
Yeah.
who they're talking about. You just know
Right.
that like Spock is just saying something to keep the conversation going. The Giants.
It's almost funnier that we don't know the
Yeah,
names
right.
because then the line the Giants is like
Right.
more ironic. Yeah. Okay, Harris, you want to go first?
Sure. I feel like I shouldn't though. I feel like I always go first lately, but I will.
Okay, well maybe somebody else wants to go first. Let's.
Colin, do you ever go first?
I don't like it. I
Because he
feel-
likes to. Because he likes to decide.
He likes to be
decide whether
last.
he's going to give it an 8 or a 9 based on how low it's faring so far.
It's just I feel like
Colin likes to tack on the last 20 minutes of the show.
it's just I feel like it's a little claustrophobic, you know, when I'm asked to go first. I don't feel like I have enough space. Are you guys saying that you want
Well,
me
we
to
can't
go
make the
first?
guests go
yeah,
first.
don't worry. We're gonna
Yes.
don't worry. We're gonna trim down whatever you say to a tight 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
That means speak.
And go.
Well, this is just one hell of a movie. The hell it is. Double dumbass on anyone who thinks that it's not. I don't know. I love this movie. As a kid, I loved it so much, and just I've rewatched it a million times, and it's hard to rate it for me because it's one of those movies where I like it and I know it's good and it does things good, but I also just have that like pure like joy and love for this one thing that goes beyond even the qualities that it has. You know, it's like a part of me, like, oh, I always love this movie. Like it's something I've seen a million times. So it's really hard for me to rate it. I think there's so many really cool things about it. I think that the Seventh Heaven woman, I think she actually does do a good job in this. Her miming the invisible wall is dubious. But otherwise, I feel like I get her character, even if it is a really strange woman. I love that idea of being in the Star Trek universe and they go back in time and someone's like, look, I don't like it here. I want to go to your time. And they're like, we have to accept this because, well, we do. And that's, I don't know, there's something cool about that, you know? It's really, really funny. Like the writing of the dialogue, there's a laugh in almost every scene, especially in the 80s part. And they have the cool ship, which looks awesome. Like the production design, because they realized they had the opportunity to make it on the Klingon ship, they had this freedom to get away from the styles that had been sort of building up since, the 60s, which came from like the 50s idea of science fiction, which is like, Flash Gordon type stuff, like, and move it into like, something that looks more Blade Runner-y, and it looks cool. And it's really fun to get to see characters just interacting with a world where, they're not supposed to really exist. What else can I say? There is no conflict, I guess, like we talked about, but I love that it still fits within the vein of Star Trek to me, where it's like, hey, like, what if, the other species of life on this planet what if we viewed them as more important? Maybe we should think about it. And what else can I say?
Wow.
You don't have to say anything else. Maybe that's a sign you're done.
I don't know about that.
I think all of us are done after
Correct.
that.
We should have got the soundbite of that. We should just like intersperse it throughout the whole episode. It's just the sound of that computer.
How
saying
do you
correct.
feel?
Correct. How do you feel? How do you feel?
How do you
The
feel?
question is irrelevant. That's not what Spock sounds like.
The question
really
is irrelevant.
logical.
So what do you?
I'm
what
gonna
do
give
you-
it 9 Timothy
Or so we can move on.
Dolphins. 9 Timothy Dolphins. Yay!
That's great.
Fuck yeah, whales, baby! Woo!
Harris.
All right, I'll go now.
Yes.
There's a part of me, and it's a very persuasive part, that thinks this movie is very, very dumb. I laughed at it way more than I laughed with it. The screenwriting is full of plot holes, and the acting is kind of hit or miss depending on who it is. There's little sense of urgency or momentum after the first act. The conflicts all get resolved far too easily or through like unexplained coincidence and good fortune, and it relies more heavily on like previous knowledge of the series and the characters. It's probably like the least effective as a standalone movie. And with all that being said, it was a lot of fun. It looked great. It was briskly paced. It like really injected some humor into the series that it really could need, really could use. I thought it worked well as like an ending of the saga that started with the Wrath of Khan. Like we've kind of come to sort of a satisfying conclusion where they're back to he's captain of the Enterprise again, and it felt like a good journey. Shatner was, I thought, really hammy but solid as usual, and I really liked seeing Nimoy as Spock again. It's not as good as Wrath of Khan, not even close, I don't think, but it's definitely better than Search for Spock. So I gave it 6 Timothy Dolphins. Thought about giving it 7, but also thought about giving it 5, but I settled on 6 Timothy Dolphins.
Oh, good. 7. All right, good.
6 Timothy Dolphins.
Oh, I missed some stuff at the beginning because it sounded like you were saying stuff that's wrong.
Matt, do you want to take a crack at ranking this
Yeah.
thing?
I wasn't expecting Harris's twist at the end where he actually goes on to sing some of its praises. So I was going to say something to the effect of like, I kind of agree with a lot of the criticisms that Harris was laying on it. And yet it wins me over because I think it's kind of charming as a piece of sci-fi and adventure meets comedy, because it really tried its hand at comedy in a weird way, and I thought it kind of paid off. I mean, I was really laughing at it. I was laughing with it. I think that it's a fun romp, and it's for a fourth installment in a movie franchise. If you have a good time at the theater and it makes you think a little bit about social issues on top of that, but isn't, admittedly can verge into heavy-handed territory, it still sort of wore it, I thought, pretty well. It was a good sci-fi story and kind of something topical, which Star Trek is, I think supposed to do. At the end of the day, I had a good time. I give it 7 solid Timothy Dolphins.
Nice.
You were based on that, you were expecting me to say something closer to 8,
9 or
9.
10. Yeah.
9 or
Not
10,
based on
11.
that. I was expecting you to say something high.
Well, I agree with Harris that I think Wrath of Khan is the more it's a better package of a movie. It from beginning to end. I think he sort of said it well earlier that Voyage Home doesn't quite seed the subtext and the inner turmoil of Spock quite as well as Wrath of Khan sows the conflict and inner turmoil of Kirk and pays it off at the end. But again, a fun romp is a fun romp, and I think the movie still wins because of that.
Point out that Colin also gave The Wrath of Khan a 9.5, so he agrees that it was better as well.
Well, this is also a 9.5. I just didn't do my decimals.
Anyway, I'll stop talking. I really liked it.
Well, I hear you. I just feel like there's a way of vetting the guests so that they agree with me completely and say whatever I say. No, I'm just kidding. No,
That's
I
fair.
totally hear you.
All right, Matt, take us home.
One thing we forgot to talk about is whether or not the decision to have the woman, whose name I forget already, Jillian, yeah, she comes back to the future with them, and whether or not that was it. I had read somewhere that some critic had basically said that was their one beef with this movie, is that feels like the wrong ending for this movie, that what it should have been was that she should have stayed on Earth in the present day to basically say
Let him finish.
the lesson here is that mankind needs to step up their game and be more aware of these problems. But by her leaving Earth and going with them, it's saying fuck it, it'll all be fine in the future
and flying in space, right? Doesn't it end with her going onto another starship and doing science shit? And that's all cool, but
she
why
ghosts
not stay
Kirk.
on Earth? And
She ghosts him.
yeah.
That was
right. She goes to the future to save the whales, but then she leaves the whales to go on
I
a
thought she was
going to
be on a ship in the ocean looking at whales.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Is she was
I
still.
didn't read it that way.
She was still doing. She was still
When they
working
say
with the
ship,
whales.
Yeah,
when they say ship in Star Trek, I think I just naturally assume they
don't clarify what
starship.
kind of ship. But I did love the scene where Kirk thinks that they're gonna have a moment or whatever, and I kind of for a second, because she had been standing next to Spock's dad, I kind of thought that maybe my dream would come true and she would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've got a date with him later," and just leave Kirk. And Spock. But it was almost better that she just ghosted him to go.
She just grabs the blue guy
Yeah,
antenna. She's like, I've
She's
got a
like,
date.
seriously, I just wanted to get to the future. We're not going to do it or anything. You got no chance. I'm going on a boat to study whales.
Is it just me, or is it when she says "Oh, I'll find you," you get kind of a little uncomfortable, if not angry? Maybe that's just me based on my experiences, but
No, that's her. That's her very nicely saying yeah, don't call me. I'll be in touch when I would like to see you. So don't hold your breath on that either.
Yeah,
that was a very nice, soft letdown.
She's like,
for Kirk.
You're in the friend zone. He's like, is that anywhere near the neutral zone?
I don't think he's looking to get neutral.
So Matt,
Finish it up,
does
Matt.
this factor into your rating?
Yes, it does. Because I kind of agree.
I think
with
that's a
that
fair
ending.
criticism.
I feel like watching this movie. Yeah, I think my natural, feeling in watching this movie, knowing really not much about it, is that even though it is a change in genre, essentially, it's now a full blown family movie, comedy. You know, there's no danger, there's no villain, there's no scary element. They're, you know, fish out of water kind of thing going on. And like, I personally didn't feel like I was missing anything from the previous movies. Like, I wasn't thinking, where's the Khan like villain, or, you know, it just all was seamless for me. I feel like they did a really good job of taking it in a different direction and keeping it lighthearted, but like to the point of I didn't feel gypped. Like I went into the theater, or like, you know, I rented the movie and got something other than what I paid for, sort of thing. It, like Colin said, it's like, you know, true in spirit to the original show. It feels like a really good episode of the original show. It feels very much, I think Harris said it doesn't feel like it stands on its own, when I feel like this one very much does stand on its own as like a good story from start to finish. It doesn't, I mean, it lightly connects to the previous movie, but like only, you know, just to get us going pretty much. I feel like had I not seen Search for Spock, I still would have enjoyed this the same amount. I thought it was funny. I feel like, most importantly, it stands the test of time. I'm watching it today through the lens of 2020, and you know, it doesn't feel dated to me, really. I mean, obviously there are some things that, you know, we don't have in our society anymore or whatever, you know, but it's very light, and it's very not to the point where it's comical, you know. We're not, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not laughing at it. I'm more laughing with it. Yeah, I don't know. I like the tone of it. I like everything that they're doing. I was thoroughly enjoying it throughout. And for that, I give it a 9.
Yeah! I do think that's a fair criticism that guy said, but I mean, I think if you like that character, you want her to go to the future. So it's kind of a tough thing. I don't know.
But I don't know. I think what they're saying is like, you want her. She's like the lone voice of like standing up for these animals, and now she's just gonna leave her time.
But I think the
and
message
like everyone
is like,
else is gonna be
I think the message is that like you need to be that because she's not real. Like,
she's no longer with us.
Yeah. Well, she's also not real. None of them are real. You know, like you do know that as an audience.
They're real to me.
Yeah, but like I think
real to me.
I think it says the message to the audience that you need to think about like what you're doing and what this conflict is. And I don't know. I'm not sure that it would.
I think it sends a message that going into space is the answer, or traveling through time.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
we can all agree that the guy who's playing his radio too loud on the bus deserved to die, and that's all. That's all we really need to know.
That is the truth right there. No, I don't think it. I don't
Too bad. He was going to jerk answer.
I don't think changing that one thing actually would make the difference in sending that message. Because, like Harris said, Harris would still have the takeaway of like going to space in the future is the answer. You know what I mean? Even if she didn't go with them.
Unless they looked her up in the future and she was like the famous person who saved the whales, and there was a lot more whales.
Yeah, that'd be a nice button, but whatever.
Do you think it would have been funny if they went back to their time period and like everything was changed and they were like, "What happened?" And it was like a butterfly effect kind of thing. It was all because Spock killed that punk rock guy.
You think it's going to be because of the whales.
Yeah.
That's like the big thing it should be. But it's like, nope, it was the guy on the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
It just ends with a close-up of Spock's face, and he's like, "That was most illogical." And then it just cuts to black.
I mean,
it cuts to black, and then they play the "I Hate You" punk rock song after the credits.
I hate you, and I.
All right. Well, I think I want to say a big thank you to Matt Jablin for coming out and being part of the show with us. Matt, do you have anything that you want to promote? Anything you want to plug that's going on in your life that you're working on? Fun stuff? Anything? Do you have a Twitter, an Instagram, all that stuff?
I'll put my website out there. It's just my name.com, Matt, M-A-T-T, Jablin, Jablin.com. It's some of the work that I do, and yeah, I'll put that out there.
Nice. Very cool.
Thank you very much for having me, by the way. This was fun.
Yeah, of course. I know you've been excited. I first
was.
brought this up to Matt like 3 months ago, and he's like, I just had a baby yesterday, so I can't be on your show. And I'm like, oh, I'll get back at you in 3 months. Don't worry.
But I think I said, I was like, yeah, but I'm in.
Right. And we've been like on the phone trying to figure this out and like logistically figure out when. And then Harris was traveling, and it was like, oh my God, is this going to happen? And guys, I'm glad we were able to do this together.
Well, I want to applaud you for managing to find a quiet place to do this with a baby. That's nicely done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else? Do you guys have anything going on in your lives, or what's going on? Anything we forgot to mention about this movie?
The score is great. I love the music.
No, the score's terrible.
We did forget to mention the score.
The score is terrible and inappropriate.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's excellent. I thought it was great.
It's like old-fashioned, and like except for the chase scenes in the hospital and the ship, it's like usually too bouncy. It's always sending the wrong message, and it's not. I don't know. I thought
not
it was
gonna
very
lie. I listened to the entire soundtrack album today, right after the movie was done.
I mean, it might be fine independently. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the music. It's just too old-fashioned, and like. I don't know. There's something a little militaristic about it in certain parts, and it's like very, I don't know. Just it was too many marches and too many weird little.
Here's a connection
flourishes.
for you. Do you know where Leonard Nimoy got this composer from? How he like spotted his work?
Did they compose the Legend of Bilbo Baggins together?
Very close. He composed the Hobbit, or I think it's either the Lord of the Rings cartoon. Do you remember the Lord of the Rings cartoon movie?
Yeah.
We watched that in elementary school.
He composed that. Yeah.
Oh, and of course Nimoy was a big fan of that. But like, you know what? He also composed. He was a composer for Barry Lyndon, which is like an appropriate use of this kind of music. That makes sense to me.
I don't know what Barry Lyndon
it didn't
is.
fit. Well, it didn't fit in this movie, but yeah.
Who's
awesome.
the composer? What's his name?
His name is Leonard Rosenman.
Huh. Yeah.
And that's all you know that he's done? I didn't look him up.
And also Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Oh hell yeah!
Oh hell yeah!
Is that the one with the nuclear people?
It sure is.
Yeah.
Yes.
We must worship the doomsday weapon. It has an omega on its fin.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got that in. We'll have to edit this into earlier in the podcast.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everyone. This has been a great show, and we'll be back in a few weeks with Star Trek V: The Final Frontier.
Woo!
I try to end on something funny, but I got nothing. Oh, nuke the whales.
Oh,
nuke the whales.
Nuke the whales.